This is Planet Band. I'm Nick Liebel. This is my co-host, Kurt Kissinger. We have our producer, Matt Stein, behind the cameras, and we have Leon Kuehner with us today. Leon, how are you?
I'm very good. Happy to be here.
Well, we're happy that you are here. When we were thinking of this, you were the first person we were like, we have to have you. So we appreciate you making the time to be with us. There's so many places we could start. I mean, I'm just paging through your resume here. I mean, I don't know how you got this thing to 2 pages. But IBA 6 times, best in class at the Drake Adventureland 14 times. And didn't that stop during your time there too? Like they stopped doing it?
No, it was still going on. It's still going on, yeah.
For high school?
Yeah.
Is it still going on?
Not now.
Oh, not now, but while I was at Hampton Dumont, yeah, it was still going on, yeah.
Jazz championships, you won it, what, 4?
Well, we were runner-up once, and I think we qualified 30 sometimes. I can't remember.
30 times. That's
all.
Track
you know.
Yeah, you lose track, I'm sure, after 10 or 20. So, but I thought just a great place for us to begin is maybe out of all those things, what's been the most meaningful looking back? I think, as a young director, if I could have like 1/5 of any of those things, that would be that'd be an awesome career. So looking back, what's meant the most to you?
The kids. Yeah, I think I taught 3 years in Britt, which is now West Hancock, and then I was in Hampton over 30 years. And I think when you look back, it's just like anything. It's working with kids. And you see them and you know the kid's name. Oh yeah, they were the flute player. They were the clarinet player. You know, and that's, I think, the most important thing. I think with any teacher, that's what it is. I think it's work. It's the students that make it work. We got to play some great music. That we had some great musical moments that looking back. But to me, I think it's the relationship that you built with your kids, and in good times and bad. You have highs and you have lows, but everything it comes down to the kids. That's the highlight, and that's what I'm going to remember. Always.
So when you think of those, do you you can just see the band in front of you?
Yeah.
Those kids.
Yeah, because you just know. I think because, I work a lot with student teachers and young teachers right now. And so that's the thing we come down, that everything, student motivation, classroom management, everything is all built on relationships. And it's having that relationship with the student, and then also with you building that relationship with your department, with your faculty, your community. Like I taught in small towns, my whole career, and I had chances to teach at bigger schools, but I thought, I can do this in a small town. Because I think you really need to bloom where you're planted. And I thought, there's certain things to where, you're in a town and everybody knows you. You know everybody's parents. You know where every kid lives. You can bring their band instruments to them if they forget them because you know where they live. No, I'm just, and I've done that. But seriously, I think it's all on relationships, and that's what I'm going to remember.
Mm-hmm. That's really encouraging to directors of even us in Algona. We're a 3A school, but we're not a 4A. We're a medium small 3A school, and like you said, you can make a program what you want it to be, even in a small school.
Right. Yeah. Lots of time I do lots of clinics and things with bands, and especially when I'm working with a smaller band. I said one of the best bands I've ever judged had 25 kids in it. Mm-hmm. But those kids were invested. And it's like good tone and good pitch are good tone and good pitch. It doesn't make any difference if it's the top wind ensemble of a 4A school or, this band probably had 50% of the high school in it. It was a really small school. But, it's, it's just good things are good no matter the size of school. And you can develop that. There's pluses and minuses, but yeah, it can be done.
Well, hey, speaking of development, so and when was IBA 1 for you? So 70.
Early 80s.
Okay.
Because I came to Hampton in 1978, and I think our first IBA was 81. It took about 3 years.
Okay.
To get it, to where we started to where we were.
So in 1978, pre-IBA 1, pre-Hampton Empire, the pre-Empire, what was Hampton when you walked in, and then what did you have to like what was your vision, and like what were the things that you had to put into place, or
Sure.
When you're building this system, I mean, so for the listeners out there, IBA, when you get selected, you can't apply for 3 years.
Correct.
So if someone went 6 times hypothetically, that would mean that over a 20-year period, and you didn't get in every time you put in a tape.
No, I had some bands I thought were better that didn't get in, but it's just whatever.
So how did you start,
Okay.
planting those seeds for that system?
The thing, I was really lucky. I when I moved to Hampton in 1978, I had applied for the graduate assistantship in band at UNI, and I interviewed for the Hampton job the same week, and I got offered both, and I had to decide. I remember it was like on a Friday, and I'm going, okay, I have to decide. And there was just something when I went to Hampton that I thought, no, you've got to take this job. You could feel it. The administrative support was there. And I said, this was kind of my vision of what I wanted to do, how I want to do this. And the other thing is the director before me, the kids loved band. They loved it. So you didn't have to go in and change the culture of a school to go in. And I could tell, it's just that the director before me did a really, really good job of getting the kids to really think band was cool. Okay, so and at that time Hampton was a 3-year high school, and I had, I think maybe 70 or 60 or 70 in that first band, which was a nice way to start. The other thing is Brian Stevens, who had just started teaching at the middle school. I've taught 1 year more than Brian, and I went in and it was like, oh, And the other thing too, he didn't want the high school job. He said, no, he knew he was a master middle school teacher, just a master at it. And but he didn't want the high school job. So it wasn't like, this thing walking, well, I wanted it, but they gave it to Leon. And so all of a sudden it was just like you sat down and it just meshed. And we were able to sit and decide, this is kind of how I want to structure the program. Administration agreed with it. And so I had that support. And so coming in, I really wanted to, I remember at the interview, I said, the lesson teaching is the foundation of my program. That time that I get to spend with the students is super, super important. So I was hired as doing 5th grade and then 10, 11, 12. So I started them and finished them, and then Brian was in the middle. And so a lot of it was just sitting down and Brian was had taught 2 years. And I had taught 3, so we were pretty young. But sitting down there and just looking at, this is how we want to structure it. The students, I said, really, really liked band, but they hadn't really done a lot. I mean, they didn't know what All-State was, didn't go to large group, didn't go to jazz contests. I think solo ensemble, they had maybe 5 entries the year before I was there. But they were just getting started, but I could tell they liked playing. And I'm going, okay. Yeah, and pep band was their big thing. And it was awesome. I mean, it was the most awesome pep band I'd ever heard. But so the excitement was there. And so it was just a matter of going, okay, this is really, really cool, you guys. Now let's try this. So we're going to try this. So we're going to try this. So it was just a matter of slowly, taking the excitement, the great things that the director before me had done, And then as the students from Brian's middle school program kept moving up, and like I said, all it took was 3 years. And they played IBA. But it was just, it was. Now, was it hard at first to convince high school kids that you are going to have lessons? Oh yeah.
And that wasn't a culture when you.
No.
Okay.
No, they had some lessons, but I said, no, it's required. 512. Everybody's having a lesson. And I did individuals at that time just because we were a little smaller. And it took about a year, but once, it's just like anything, once the middle school kids were used to having, so when they get, it just continues. Remember how Mr. Stevens did it? Now that's how I'm going to do it, And so it was just a matter of getting that expectation in there. So that really, really made the difference. The other thing, too, I think was stressing solo ensemble. Because I think really, for me, what that does, that's really like individualize an IEP for every student. Because what you can do is you are able to go through, and everything is personalized for that really, really top student. That you can say, all right, we're going to do this, 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 this. Some say, I really like you to play. Could you play maybe in a quartet or a trio or something, just to get that experience? And really, what we're going through is, that first year we maybe had 20, 25 student entries, and it just kept growing and growing. My last year, I had 150, I think, 130. I can't remember. We had a lot. I think we had 100 solos and 30 ensembles. I can't remember. But the thing is, what had happened is you just build on it. And as they and the thing is, you go, and what it does is it improves the technique of your band. Because everything is like, okay, you can play music that fits your ability. And then I was a huge believer in choirs. Like I would do a flute choir, a clarinet choir, a brass choir, a saxophone choir, a trombone choir, a trumpet choir, a percussion choir. And because of my limited practice time, what we did is I stressed tone and pitch in my choirs. A lot of it just became, when am I going to practice with all these kids? Because as things kept growing, it was like, how am I going to practice with them? So the music I did in the choirs was maybe a little bit easier than I would have done, than what I did with the band. But what I worked on was tone and pitch. And in my mind, I'm thinking, if I can get my flute choir, my clarinet choir, my brass choir, my low brass choir, my percussion choir, all playing with good tone and good pitch and playing musically, my concert band should be pretty good, because then it's just a matter of, So that was a really cornerstone, like the third quarter, of your school year. That was a huge cornerstone. And the thing is, Brian was doing the same thing at the middle school.
Okay, yeah.
So like we would bring in 40 to, as we got going, there'd be 40 to 50 freshmen coming in every year. And I'd go in and I'd say, well, you had, like I said, we had 90 or 100 soloists. But every freshman that came in had played a solo in 7th and 8th grade.
The culture was already established.
It was already established.
Fantastic.
No, this is what we do.
Yeah.
And then it was a matter of I'm going, well, really, I should have had, in fairness, 180 soloists, because they were all soloists. But obviously that's not possible. So you would kind of...
So you lowered it to 100. Much more manageable.
But that's what I was thinking. But the thing is, it sounds like a lot, but that's what they were doing.
Yeah.
And so, I know how to do a solo. And okay, all right. And then you would just go in and say, all right, well, here's, this is for freshmen, this is really what you're doing, And now, was it a lot of work? Of course it was. Was it a very, very stressful solo ensemble day, a very stressful day? Of course it was. But it was probably where you were doing your best teaching. Because at that time, I was working solos, I was working ensembles. The jazz band was getting ready for jazz championships, and the concert band was getting ready, for festival. And so it's like you were dying. But on the other hand, you're going, you were doing your best teaching. So I think it was just a matter of, we started small, but it was just, but I think, and then and getting the kids to buy into the vision was another thing. Like when I went there, they didn't know what All-State was that first year. And so I took them to the All-State concert. We took a busload of kids and we brought them down, said, this is what it is. Because how are you going to, okay, no, you're going to spend hundreds of hours of work practicing. Your chances of getting in are next to nothing. Go team. You got to know, okay, no, this is what it is. And then, so they kind of got an idea. And so it was just a matter then of showing them and then, them putting the time in and understanding what it was going to be like. So like that first band that went to IBA had 6 All-Staters in it. And the 3 years before, they didn't know what it was. So it just, on the other hand, I just happened to have some really talented kids, and they loved band. But it was just a matter of selling the kids on your vision. Well, first of all, you as a teacher have to have the vision. Because if you don't know where you want to lead your kids, how are they? They have to know, that where you want to go, and then they have to trust you. And that was the thing too, because of course they loved the band director before me, and I was saying, oh no, we're going to do this, we're going to try this, and you kind of you just had to ease into it, but take the excitement, take the love of band, take the love of music, and then just kind of, all right, this is cool. And then luckily they had success right away, which doesn't hurt. Right. Because they had it they had a one at large group their first year. They made the jazz championships their first year. Wow. The jazz band had never gone to a contest, and they ended up winning NCIBA, and we're going, oh, this is fun. But it was just, that helped. And then getting, but I think it was, the rating is, that helped, but it was more, no, kids, this is where I want you to go. This is what I think you can do. And then it was just a matter of, you just keep raising the bar. I say you always program to the top half, because I think the top half, the other people they're going to get better. And the thing is, and that's the cool thing about band is we all share in it equally, though. Whether you're first year or last year, everybody shares equally because no one sits on the bench. And so building that culture of, first of all, that, we can do this, and then, we're kind of good. That doesn't, and we're having fun, because those are my 2 rules. Have fun, and be good. Now, that's going to take a lot of work. I said, are there times we're going to sweat? Are there times, of course. But if you're going to be good, that's all part of it. And then the third rule I add a little bit later is all I want is your best effort. That's all I want. And I don't care if you're sitting last chair. I don't care if whatever. Because I was a big believer in y'all come and play in my band. Y'all come. And I said, if you give me 100, I'll give you 110, and we're going to be just fine. So that's kind of how we started from there, and then it just kept building.
Okay, so you had a lot in what you just shared with us that we could spend a lot of time unpacking. But one thing that stuck out to me was that you had a vision for your program.
Correct.
And is that something that, do you think, are there directors in our area, in our state, that just lack that vision? Does that come with experience, or how did you know what you wanted to do and make that happen in your program?
I was able to student teach. His name was Bob Dean, and he was the director at Mason City, and he was like the band director god.
Yeah.
He was just like a band director god, and I got 9 weeks with him, and it was interesting. I never got to direct the band at the high school. I directed it one time. Because back then, you only student taught 9 weeks. And I did the last 9 weeks. So I did like March, and so they were working large group. So you're not going to get to direct the Mason City top band as a student teacher. So I directed it my first week of student teaching, and that was I had interviewed for the job at Britain. The superintendent and principal came and said, "We want to see you direct the band." I'd never directed the band, but I remember they were playing Black Horse Troop and Russian Christmas music for a large group. So I'll do the Susan March, right? And so I directed it. But the thing is, it was watching. And every day after band, I got like 10 minutes. And he said, "Leon, come down." And he sat down and said, "All right, did you notice what I did here? This is how I did this. This is how I did this." And then he would come clinic my bands. And then the rest of the time, we just taught lessons till we puked, you know? Yeah. And so it was like, I get it. I get it. I mean, when you hear how clean a band can play, this is what the tone should sound like. And he was super, super organized, you know. But I remember the one thing he told me when he said, "Leon, it's all about the kids." I mean, he'd sit down and we'd go down and he'd say, "All right, notice how we do this here. This is what you do here. This is what you," and I would just write everything down. I'd write it all in the scores when he would come clinic my bands. But then he said, "But it's all about the kids." So I think as I was going through, when I went to Hampton, I could see there was potential. And then it was just a matter of, okay, how am I going to guide it? What am I going to do? It didn't hurt that Brian's band made IBA 6 times as well. Yeah. You know, and so that was one of the things where we had similar visions, you know, as far as what we wanted to get done. And so, yeah, I think all directors have a vision. I think that did I have a vision my first year? I wanted to survive. Yeah. You know, because I work a lot with beginning teachers, and I work a lot with student teachers as well. And that's the thing. One of the things we do talk about is you do have to have that vision. And sometimes it's a vision for the next 30 minutes. I want to survive. You know, or what do I want to get done in this lesson? What do I want to get done in this rehearsal? What do I want to get it done by the end of the day, by the end of the week, by the end of the year, by the end of 5 years? And it's just sitting down and kind of having that plan. And there's going to be times where you're going up and down and you change your vision. But the students will get it if they know where you want them to go. And sometimes we forget to tell them. And yeah, it's like one of my favorite quotes when I do student leadership training. And one of the things, his name was Brendan Burchard, and he said, Martin Luther King gave an "I have a dream" speech, not an "I have a plan" speech. Now, you got to have both. But a plan without vision or a vision without plan, no, you got to have both of them. And so that was one of the things where I thought, okay, here's where I want you to go. Here's where I want you to go. And you got to get the people to buy into what you're talking about. So like the first time we tried out for IBA, we had to talk. We had to talk to them and say, all right, here's what we're going to do. It is going to take a boatload of work, and your chances of getting in are like, you know. And the same with Allstate, because eventually we could have 28 kids enter Allstate each year. And eventually it got to the point where we had auditions to get into the 28.
To audition, yeah.
We had auditions to audition.
Yep.
And then I had my 28. And I'd sit down with them and say, now you understand, your chances of getting in are very slim. And I'm going to work really, really hard. And so then it's a matter of, okay, then what's the motivation? I would say if my motivation was to get as many All-Staters in as possible, it probably was the stupidest. I mean, obviously you did, but for the amount of time I invested and the students invested, if that was your measure of success, a huge waste of time. Yeah. If your measure of success was, can you take each one of these students and get them to be the best of their potential? And then realizing, as soon as that was done, I just had trained 28 section leaders. Because as the band program grew and I had a 9-10 band and 11-12 band, you know, you'd kind of space it out and go. So oh my gosh, you have 28 kids that can play all 12 of their scales. You have 28 of your kids that can play etudes that are probably as hard as any band music they're going to play. And those kids are the leaders. And that's done by October.
Great way to start the year.
A great way to start the year before the concert band even sits in their chairs. Now, did it take a while to get there? Of course it did. But it was just a matter of, it was getting the kids to buy in, getting the kids to understand that the amount of work it's going to take, but then they were willing to do it. And so it was just, yeah. And again, it all comes down to connections. It all comes down to the relationship you have with your students, and for them to be willing to put the work in, but also for the kid that sits at the bottom of the section. Who cares? Like I said, I don't care where you sit. Did I have freshmen playing at a senior level? Yes. Did I have seniors playing at a 7th grade level? Yes. I love those kids. You can't have a band of all, type A's. You can't have a band of section leaders. It doesn't work. You got to have the kid. I just want to be in the band. I want to be with my friends. I want to play in a band. And I said, you guys, and we're going to be good. We're going to do some fun things. I think that's our job as music educators, is we teach all kids. We just don't teach the really good ones. No, we teach them all. And the minute they understand that your band room it's the safe place in the school. It's a place. It's where I'm accepted for who I am. I'm accepted for my ability. I feel like we're going to have some fun in here, but we're also going to have some work and sweat and tears in here. Yeah, but I think, that's interesting. When that's what I ask my student teachers, and I go and say, "What do you want your music room to look like? What do you want to accomplish in your music room?" And it's so interesting. That's the stuff that comes up. Music is the second thing. And the minute they, and I think, okay, now we're on the right track, because you're not going to make good music if this other stuff isn't in place. It's not going to happen, and the minute that is there and the kid knows, okay, here's where I am secure. Here's where, if I make a mistake, who cares? I mean, you do. But the minute they come in there, it's like, then that's when the music can happen, because this is what we do in this room. So, and then it's just setting that up from year one. So when they walk into the room, I'm kind of anal retentive. I want everything in my room to look like this is where business happens. Now, did I have mess? I just hit it, but to me, it was being that, but also being super organized to the point where I did not want to waste students' time because I didn't know what I was doing. And, obviously when you're a beginning teacher, it's like, you're just trying to figure it out. But it's interesting. And then as you kept teaching, you just kept raising the bar. And it's like, okay. And then the thing that's so cool with band is every year your talent is different. But you just but your curriculum is your music. But you never compromise good tone, you never compromise good pitch, and you never compromise musicality. You don't compromise. And now, the difficulty? Yeah. I've got to hide my clarinets in the upper register. Okay, we're not going to play. And we've all had that. Or my flutes can't play in tune to save their souls. All right. Okay, well, first of all, we're going to work on that. But secondly, but that's the beauty of what we do, because we can tailor our curriculum, like our performance curriculum, to fit our students. But the basics never change. And that you don't compromise.
I'm glad to hear you pair vision with a plan.
Yes.
You're right. They're both necessary. I've observed students or young teachers who have grown up in the best programs in the state, best university band in the state. They get their first teaching job in middle of nowhere 1A school, and it is just a shock to them. And that's where, if there's a pitfall, is they have the vision, but they didn't have the plan.
Right.
to put that into place for successful, making those students successful.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. I just came back. I was at the IBA huddle last week, which was, we had like 30 young teachers, like they haven't taught yet. And so we were sitting down, so we spent a day with them, and it was like, of course, they're all excited. It's like awesome. It's just very energizing. And then with the Iowa Alliance, we do a fall symposium for beginning teachers after the first quarter. So this year it's like the first weekend in November. And that's what I told them. I said, it's awesome talking to you now, but I want to talk to you now after you've had 9 weeks. Because right now, it says, you don't know what you don't know. Because some of them haven't even met their bands yet. Of course, if you don't know what you don't know, and then all of a sudden you're going, oh my gosh, I have 2 flutes, a clarinet, and a bass drum. What am I going to play? So it's one of those things where, it's just that ongoing thing. Because right now they can plan, but that, I know you change your plan every day. You change your plan mid-rehearsal. Sometimes you change your plan as you walk the kids. The kids are walking in the door, and you go, it ain't going to work today. I can tell, because you can just see it in their eye. Okay, this isn't, okay, I'm going to try this instead, So, yeah, but having that vision is super, super important. And the other thing is you have to believe in it. Because I always tell, because the kids can spot a phony a mile away. And if you get, you're going, oh, that's awesome. That's the best I've ever heard. And the kid's going, no, I don't, And so it's one of those, but they can see through, do you really believe in what you are doing? I'm a huge believer in passion. Because sometimes that's the only thing that gets you through. Because I've had days where I thought, I can't teach. After I taught 35 years, I had days. After I'm in 49 right now, I'm going, I can't teach. I forgot how. And we all have these times where we're going, I don't know how. And so I thought, okay. So you reflect on your teaching, and then you revise, and then you reteach. It's just that constant changing, because it's never done. And that's why teaching is such an art. It's not a set of directions. It is a set of directions, but not really. Not just. You got to have a set of directions, but it's that constant revision and reflection of what I'm doing, how the kids are feeling, how you're feeling. But you still have to know where you're going. And it's never a straight path. Ever a straight path. It's like that. But anyway.
Wow. Okay. You just answered so many questions. With the lessons, did you have a plan going into? So when you say that you were organized for everything, what did the lesson system look like? And then what did it look like at the beginning? And then when you had 4,000 kids,
okay,
what did?
Okay, we were old school. All right. In 5th grade, like I said, I started the 5th graders. And this is old school. It's not done anymore. They had practice calendars, and we sat down, and the parents had to sign them, or their guardian had to sign it every week. And I tracked it. Everything was tracked. I color-coded everything. So I did all the 5th grade lessons. One week was red week. I circled everything in red. The next week was blue week. And the next week was green week. So as I was going through the technique books, I could see if something's circled in 2 colors, I'm going, okay, we've got a problem. Either they're not, but if they say they're practicing. It's just a way for me to keep track of everything. And we tracked every student going through the lesson books. We had lessons. I tried to do lessons individually and pairs at most. As the program grew, it became harder. And we had required lessons from 5th through 8th, lesson practice time from 5th to 8th grade. My 5th graders, I said, I will not grade you in band. We based it, okay, it was just on how much you practice. If you want this grade, this is what, because I told the parents I want talent, nothing to do with it. Because you all know you have that kid that can look at it and play it, Yeah, we've all had that. Now, will that fly now? I don't know. But what we did is we were able to develop technique. So I would have kids, my top kids in 8th grade, some would be in Rubank Advanced 2. We did we did this student instrumental course for 3 books, and then we went to Rubank Advanced 2, and then we went to selected studies. Now, so I had kids all over the place, but and then we would track. So as the kids would come in from 8th grade into 9th grade, then we would have we would track where every kid was. And so one of the best things that we ever did is we did an analysis of our lesson book series. And we sat down and figured out which concept was taught where in the lesson book series. So I could go, they say, well, I don't understand 6-8 time, Mr. Kuehner. No, you had it in this page in this lesson book, And so, okay, so let's go back and review, because they're all going to forget. They all forget. But that was a thing, too, is knowing exactly what concepts were taught in what order in our lesson book series, and then also filling in gaps. Because sometimes you go, well, I don't like the way the book teaches it in this, so let's do this in a different order. So at least there was a base of knowledge. And so it was going through developing that. When the kids got to high school, then I figured it was my job to motivate them to practice. They're in high school, and it's different in high school. I mean, there's so many things pulling on their time. So all of a sudden, they're going, yeah, no more practice calendars. Fine. I said, but the saddest thing, I told them, I said, the saddest thing to me is the best you've ever played is when you were in 8th grade.
Yeah.
To me, that's sad. And so we talked about that. I said, I'm not, but so all of a sudden, then it came down to motivation and down to relationships. So the high school kids all had lessons as well. We tried to get 100% of them in technique books. Just continue the technique book series. But as sometimes
100% of your lesson time, is that
yes,
what you mean?
yeah. Every student at high, we tried to get every student in technique books. As the program kept growing and growing and growing, it became harder because it was, because we ended up, I had 180 by when I finished. And so I did 120 lessons a week and 14 rehearsals. Because I had 2 jazz bands and 2 concert bands that I did. And then by that time, we added Joan Philgreen, who was a 512 teacher. She assisted, so she started the beginners. And then she would come up and do about 40 lessons. And a lot of those, they'd be pulled out of band.
Yeah.
Because we could, and at the high school, we couldn't pull kids out of class. So it was before school, during study hall, after school, and nights. And so that's how we did, So, but to me, it was just that sometimes it's maybe not as much at that level the playing, but it's a chance to get to talk to the kid. Yeah. Okay, do you need, and so did we work band music sometime? Sure we did, because you had to, But the thing is, and for your top students, they just went, because they went from all-state to honor band to auditions. I mean, you were just feeding them stuff as fast as you could. So then you had other kids but that's fine. When it's y'all come, but they're all important. They're all equally important. And that's the other thing too, is to maintain that is they have to realize they're all equally important. So some years you'd graduate 40 seniors and you think you're going to die because I just graduated 40 seniors. But you're going, yeah, but then the next group's coming in. So it was just, yeah. But it took a while to get there. Yeah. Yeah, so I think the biggest we had was 140 in one band. And that year almost killed me because we did the finale to Tchaikovsky's Fourth with 140 kids. It was a killer. But but they did it.
Was that an IBA year?
I can't remember.
Okay.
I don't think we ever played finale Tchaikovsky Fourth at IBA. I can't remember.
Do you know how that goes, Kurt?
No, it wasn't an IBA because Matt,
we got to cue that in the.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, but it's just having that structure, and just and you gotta work. you know. Yeah, you have to really put the work in. But it's like I said, I never went to work. I went to school. Right?
Yeah.
I never went to work. I went to school, you know. So anyway.
I can't believe you did that with a band of 140. Like, how many woodwinds would that be then?
Oh, too many.
Going bum bum.
Way too many. Yeah, we played that a lot. We played that run a lot to get it clean.
Is it in a good key?
Yeah, it's not too bad. It's not too bad. But yeah, but the thing is, it was just a matter of it's just but once you get them going, you know, then it's just a matter of, you know, it's maintaining. And then it was like, oh, then let's try this, and then let's try this, you know. Now, are there times where we had ups? Of course. Did we have our failures? Of course we did. But that's all part of it. That's all part of it.
Did you ever program a piece that was an easier level for your lower achievers? Was that ever in the mix? Because you mentioned earlier about programming the top half of the band.
Like when you do a concert, of course, you'd have to have some that, you know, some that the band would probably sight read.
Yeah.
They just would sight read it.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, now on this one, we're really going to work on musicality. We're going to really work on tone. We're really going to work on this, you know. Yeah, it's like anything. You kind of build it. And like I said, I always heard the concert in my head before the kids played a note. You got to hear the concert in your head because you got to know where you're taking them if you're going to lead them there.
Back to vision.
Right, it's back to vision. It's just like, it's not like this voyage of self-discovery. Oh, that's cool.
Right.
You know?
Let's see how this works. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you have that, you know, but yeah, trying, you know, sometimes that, you know, self-discovery is kind of cool, but, you know, but pretty much, you know, you have to know what that concert's going to sound like. And I'd always talk about, this is how I want the audience to feel here. This is how I want you to feel here. And and I said, now, if you play this piece correctly, they won't applaud. Or the applause will be one of those. Because it's like you brought them to a moment where it's like, now, and then at the end, no, we want them like standing up and screaming. You know, but you know, it just depends, you know, the voyage that you're going to take your band and your audience on as you program the pieces. Mm-hmm. So anyway.
And was your first concert, was that in December?
Yep.
Okay. Because you got done with marching band in October. Contrary to my belief, you did marching band during the school day.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that piece, the thing is that being brand new, I had to program music that I knew made the band sound good. You know, because again, you're the new kid on the block. They loved the director before you. You know, I think when I was in Hampton, I was like 24, 25. You know, I taught just 3. I started teaching when I was 21. So I was probably 24, 25. And so music selection was super, super important because you have to win the people over. Same thing with the marching band. I had to win them over. Okay, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do because that's a very visual. You know, the whole town sees you.
It's very public.
Yeah, very public because so many more people are going to hear your marching band and your pep band than ever hear your concert band. Well, at first, and then eventually, we would have 1,000 people at our concert. So, you know, when it first started out, I thought, no, my marching band has got to, you know, because the whole town sees you, and then pep band.
Yep.
Because that's what sells your program to John Q. Public. Okay, come to one of our concerts. The kids are pretty good. So anyway.
With some of your strongest bands, were there still limitations on what you could program as far as what would be a fit for your students?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that, and then also a fit for me as a director. I'm going, oh, I don't know if I can do that one. You know? Yeah. It's like, did I overreach sometimes? You bet I did.
Yeah.
Because I remember one year, we were the IBA band, and I overprogrammed them for Adventureland. And it was not pretty, all right? It was not pretty. And I'm going, okay, all right, I learned my lesson.
Yeah.
And so you just came back, okay, we can move this here, move this here, move this here, you know? So there's times where I thought, oh, I've got this. and I overshot. You know, and which is fine. You know, I learned my lesson. You know, because I thought you kind of go, yeah, we can do this, and thought no, it was like this. I needed like 2 more weeks, and this much more. You know.
Well,
And-
haven't we all done that before?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I learned my lesson. You know, going, okay, I got to pull back. But the thing is, you know, and just being, but also being honest with the students. Okay, you guys. Okay, this is what I think we're going to do, and they trusted you. You know, they'll trust you, because if you've built that trust and that relationship with your students, they'll go, okay, all right. You know, not every team wins every game. But it ended up, yeah, they did really well.
Yeah, and when you're thinking about programming, like, do you want them to read a lot of music as well?
Yes.
So, like, I don't know, because I think about, like, we started doing the pep band during the football games because I just want them to read. So, early on, would you have longer concerts with maybe easier music so that they're reading more, or on those early concerts, are you thinking like, I'm going to stretch them because it doesn't, it always matters, but it doesn't maybe count as much.
Yeah, both ways. The first thing I did, since my marching band didn't compete, and it just worked out when I came to Hampton, they hadn't done it. And so I didn't, and I said, I'm not going to have my marching band compete. So there wasn't any preconceived notion from our community and from my administration. Yeah. So we read, like we would play 15 to 20 tunes a year in marching band. And they had one day. I'd hand the music out on Monday. Tuesday, we're out of the field. I mean, I had to get it to that point where every 2 weeks you had all new music to learn. So was the music a little easier? Of course it was, but they read. And then the same thing with concert band. We tried to do as much sight reading as we could, and that became more difficult as things got bigger and there was more things pulled on your time. Yeah. And so, but I think reading is super, super important, because, well, that's our job. We want students to be musically literate. Yeah, and sometimes, yeah, it was like you'd put something out there and a lot of it, or I knew they weren't ready for it, but I'd play it for them and hand it out. Isn't that cool? And so then you'd go through and you'd get something back from the students. Say, oh, we don't like it, Mr. Kuehner. And I go, why? Is it because you don't like it, the way it sounds, or you don't like it because you can't play it? And they'd say, oh, we don't like it because we can't play it. And that's what I knew that was the piece I was going to do, Because you're just going, and there's a difference there. Because sometimes there's music, I don't like it. And so I don't, so I had to like everything I was doing. But if they just didn't like it, they liked the sound of it, they just didn't think they could play it. And then it was fine, okay, that's it. That they're here, and I'm going to take them there. Not here, but there. And then the next year.
Yeah. A to B.
Yeah, it's just little steps. And then sometimes you had to go back a little bit because of the talent of the group. And that's totally fine. That's totally fine. Because that's the cool thing about band is that the curriculum fits the students. You're still teaching those concepts of tone, pitch, musicality, all those things, but everything is spiral. And everything we do is built on what we've done before. It's not segmented, it's not siloed. You don't teach tone in 5th grade, articulation in 6th grade, musicality in 7th. No.
Yeah.
Right. That's the cool thing about band is everything is taught simultaneously at all times. It's just that my expectation goes higher.
And I've seen you do that with students when you've come to Algona. You talk about the multiple demands on a musician simultaneously.
Right.
And you tell them this is difficult, but you're doing so well with this. And you turn that from demand and challenge into just awesome encouragement for the students.
Yeah, because I taught 5th grade band for years. And of course, they think they're awesome. And they're just honking away playing,
fearlessly.
Yeah, and like especially the saxophones. It's like, is there a dead animal in this room? But going through, and it's like One of the coolest things we did is Joan Philgreen, who was one of our third band director. For each senior, her gift to them was a recording of them playing in their first concert in 5th grade and their last concert as a senior, and she put it on the same recording. And so you could go, this is what can happen in 8 years. So of course in 5th grade, they think they're the most awesome thing ever, which is what you want. Now, are they playing with good tone? Yeah, for a 5th grader, but it's the same thing. If you can't, it's T-ball to the major leagues. You got to start with T-ball, and then it's just a matter of then just, like I told, like our 7th and 8th grade band sound like a high school band. So my fresh soft band says, you cannot sound like a fresh soft band. You cannot. You have to sound like junior seniors. And I told my junior seniors, no, you have to sound like a college band. Now, did they always make it? No, but the expectation was there. That, okay, for my fresh soft band, okay, this is what we have to do so you don't sound so young. This is what you have to do so you don't sound so young. Even though they were 15 and 16, but they could do it. You just go, okay, let's do this, and then they would push the next one. Because then it became like, especially we go to Adventureland, Drake Relays Festival, they were both, they both played, or we go to large group and they would both play. And so it became, that was good for the kids to hear that, and for, or what we do the end of the year concert where we have 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. So you'd have like 300 and, I don't know, a boatload of kids. And they all got to hear the progression. When I'm in 5th grade, this is what I'm going to sound like when I'm a senior. And so you really worked on, being band isn't a semester or a year thing. You start in 5th grade, and I will see you at your graduation reception. That's an 8-year progression. Now, did you carry them all through? Not quite.
Do you sell it to the 5th graders that this is a long term?
Oh, yeah.
On the positive, do you spin it to the positive, or do you lay down an expectation? Hey, if you're not serious about this, don't waste my time. How do you balance that?
To me, I think you always look at it. It's all positive. Okay. When they're in 5th grade, and we talk about that, and I would just say, can you imagine, like when they were my 5th grade band? Can you imagine how good you're going to be when you're in the high school band?
When you're going to be, not if.
Right.
Yes,
it's not if.
okay.
It's not when. It's all. To me, it's all a matter of expectations. So that's how we could graduate 40 seniors, because it was, But also, I also had very supportive administration. That when I went through and I've got 180 kids, and we got to get them here and and how we're going to. So you worked a lot with your administration, and your guidance counselors. And you had to be proactive there too, because, and again, it's all on relationships, it's all on planning, because, there's a lot of moving pieces to get that to work. And so, so it's, to me, it's just an expectation.
Okay.
And then and did you have some students that decided not? Of course. Their interests changed, or they had class conflicts, or they were taking college classes, and but the thing is, we would track them all down. We would follow each student. And we'd go, okay, in 8th grade, we'd say, all right, I see you didn't sign up for high school band. Is there a reason? And we sit down. Because I think, on the other hand, it's like, and that's the thing too, as the program got bigger, the attention you paid to each student had to get greater. Because I remember I had my 24th chair flute player. I had 24 flutes one year. That's a lot of flutes.
That's a lot of flutes.
And she came in like September, and we were in marching band, and she said, Mr. Kuehner, I'm going to quit. You don't need me. It doesn't, and you're sitting there and you're going, oh my gosh, Now, was she, right. Are people going to tell, gee, there's only 23 flutes playing? They're not going to do that. But the thing is to sit down. And so I said, okay, here's the deal. I said, and she kind of explained what she wanted, what she was thinking about. And I said, all right, here's what I think we can do for you. And so we talked about that and said, okay, and we went through, here's how I think we can help you. Because she said, well, I'm not adding anything to the band. I said, but let's turn this around. This is what I think we can do for you. So I just said, let's make a deal. Okay, you try marching band for 9 weeks, try concert band for 9 weeks, first, second quarter. If at the end of the first semester you think that you're not getting out of this what you want, I totally understand. I will totally respect your decision. I went to a graduation reception, but then it was just that expectation, but also it was personalizing it to that individual student. I'm not just a cog here. It's like, So that's why it was important. Like when the kids walked into your room every day, you stood outside the room and greeted each one of them. Because it'd be really easy to be in the band room, getting this, because everything, I need reads, I need music. No, it's more important for me to be out there and just, if I didn't get the chance to talk to all of them individually, at least they see me right there. Oh, hi, how are you? But I think that's super important, and that became more difficult because just of the sheer number. But on the other hand, it pays off because I'm important. It doesn't matter where I sit. I'm an important part of this group, and I make a difference. And so, again, that takes a lot of work, but it's just like, well, you know how you'd feel if you didn't think you mattered. Are you going to put the time in? No. So, anyway.
So when do you take care of I need to read?
Yeah, that's just part of it. Yeah, you just come in, I would, yeah. It's just, it is what it is.
Because I love hearing that. It's really hard.
I know, it's really hard. But that one, and then, now could I maybe do that every day? No.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because they may come in and, Mr. Kuehner, I'm
Yep.
fine, I'll take care of it because you want that kid to be able to play.
Yeah.
But there's times you can do that, in rehearsal. There's this way.
Yep.
I mean, there's different ways you can do it.
Sure.
Yeah. In a perfect world, you could do it every day, but obviously the world isn't perfect, and clarinets break their reeds, and trumpet players get their mouthpieces stuck.
Yeah,
And,
they do.
yeah, the saxophone. Yeah.
Earlier, you mentioned how to make, you guys can't sound like a young band.
Right.
And you got to do this, this, and this. What's the this? How do you do that?
That's a great question.
Or what are the types of things that you can do with younger players that, what?
Okay, with my Fresh Stuff band, it was real. They would always over-articulate. And we had to go through it and say, all right, going through and okay, where is this line? Okay, first of all, you gotta have good tone. I mean, no tone. I mean, that's it. That's why in every festival ballot, what's the number? The thing. I don't think tone
Right
is
on
on the
top.
top just because they thought they didn't know where to put it. Because that's the most important. So I think that's just it. But you can teach. I mean, good tone. It doesn't matter the age of the kid, and it doesn't matter the size of the school. Okay, so that's number one. The second thing then I think it was attention to detail. Okay, because the difficulty of the music you can alter, but I said no. Are they playing? Well, obviously all the right notes, but are they doing all the articulations correctly? Are they doing? Are they playing the musical line? Okay, because they can play the notes, but if they're not playing the music, they sound really young.
Yep.
They sound really young. And lots of times too, my younger students, they just tend to over-articulate sometimes. Say, no, it has to be like this. It has to be like this. And the other thing too is teaching them how to listen. Because as they get old, when they're younger, they have to listen, but they're so, especially if they're so worried about mechanics. Not falling off the chair, things like that.
Yeah.
But but it's like anything. As you become, all of a sudden, it's getting them to realize, like we talk about how complex it is in a band, because you have to listen 3 different ways. And when I've worked with your bands, I've talked about that. You got to listen to yourself. Am I playing with good tone and good pitch myself? Am I playing a good tone and good pitch with my section? Am I playing with good tone and good pitch and good balance with the band? So I'm listening here here and bottom to top simultaneously while having to play notes and watch our, so it's a very, very complex thing. But it's also, making sure they're aware of that. Because of the Fresh Soft Band, like they played like variations on a Korean folk song. They're Fresh Soft kids, and they played the snot out of it. But we had to get there. We had to start. Okay, we got to be able to do this. We have to be able to do this, and then it's just a matter of playing with good tone, good pitch, play what's written on the page, and play it musically.
It's that
Isn't
easy.
that easy?
It's that easy.
It sounds really easy, doesn't it? But seriously, it's just, yeah. But then, again, you have to know what you want. So that you become very efficient in your rehearsal. You're just going, okay, all right, we got to get this. This is what I want to do here. This is what I'm going to do here. And then all of a sudden they're going, okay, yeah. Maybe he does know what he's talking about.
Leon, this has been great. We could do this all day. Today, the All-State Etudes came out. You averaged, 50 to 60? No, you've had, 100? I think that's what it said, right? 100 All-Staters? 101.
I think, yeah, it was over 100. Yeah,
over
about
100
that.
All-Staters.
Yeah.
So
Somewhere
you know
in there.
a thing or two about All-State Prep. Earlier, you talked about you had an audition process for your All-Staters. So maybe it'd be great if you could just talk a little bit about, how you organized, your teaching to the students about All-State and
Sure.
stuff.
Yeah, I think the first thing is the compelling why. When you're going to have a student going to put that much amount of time in it, where your chance, like we talked about earlier, their chance of success is so small, they have to buy into the compelling why. Okay, I am doing this to make myself a better player. Now, if they don't buy into that, then you've got a problem. And I think also for you as a teacher, you have to buy into that as well. Because obviously you want every kid to make it, but that's just not, no. So the thing is, to me, it's on self-improvement. I'm going to try to challenge myself to see just how good I can get on something that's really difficult. I kind of call it, was like the talented and gifted portion of my program.
Yeah, extension opportunity.
Right. It's a really neat opportunity for the students to see, how good they can get in this amount of time. Now, I focused a lot, having taught in Hampton, we had a little access to private teaching, some. So we were 40 minutes from Wartburg, an hour from UNI, 35 minutes from Mason City. So probably at most, I maybe have 5 students at a private teacher.
Throughout your career?
Yeah, I mean, at a time.
At a
time. Some
Correct.
years I had
Yes.
none, but they also studied with me. Especially at All-State, because I would go through and say, no, this is how it has to be. Because sometimes their private teacher didn't know exactly how the process worked. So anyway, a lot of it, so first of all, I was just starting out with a compelling why. Then sitting down, and I had everything all mapped out, that it was all done according to plan. Okay? Everything was, those students all had 2 lessons a week, or in a 6-day cycle, or however it was set up.
Yeah.
I tried to see each student twice, so that meant I had to do a lot of extra which was fine, because I thought if they're willing to come in, and so everything was just all mapped out, and I had goals. And it was all set out so that my basic goal is by the end of September, everything was done. Everything was done. And so that I had the 3 weeks of October to polish. Now, the thing I was very fortunate in Hampton is we had a summer lesson program. So the kids had 6 lessons with me, 5 lessons, and then we take a break, and then one week before school started. So they had 5 lessons with me in the summertime. And so those All-Staters in July, when I was done, they knew exactly what they were going to be doing. I said, now on this day in August, the music's going to come out, and then we'll go from there.
So they had scales, they had their solo
Oh yeah,
locked
everything
in.
that was all done.
Yeah.
That was all done. So that when they came in August, then I'd start the week before school and we do that initial lesson. But a lot of it for me was just, it was planning it out in achievable chunks for the student. Especially the first time they try out, you look at it, sometimes you're in 5 sharps, it's like, oh, and they're just gonna panic. Okay, can you do 2 lines? Or whatever. But to me, it's like anything. It's like being a distance runner. You don't run a marathon first. You run a little bit, then a little bit, then a little bit. So I tried to get everything set up in achievable chunks for them. Now, did they always all reach all the achievable chunks? No. Did I have some students, by the time we got to all state auditions, I'm going, oh Lordy, yes. But that's okay. Because to me, what your job as a teacher is to set up your students for success and to decide what that success is. What does success look like? And so that was super important. So I would go in and say, all right, we're going to work this, we're going to work this, we're going to work this. Secondly, it's really super important because my background was in piano and trumpet, but you had to be able to teach instruments, all the others, at a quality you couldn't perform and demonstrate for them. Like my trumpet players, it was easy. This is what you are going to sound like.
Yep.
I wanted it to sound like this. I couldn't demonstrate on any of the other instruments. So you really had to work to get your teaching skills to the point where, it's like I've had all-state bassoon players that only studied with me, and I can't play the bassoon, and I don't remember the fingerings. I just can't. There's too many of them. I can't remember them. But the thing is, it's not important that I know the fingerings. I can look that up in a book. I had to know how to teach bassoon, and I had to know how to teach, musically. So it was just a matter of, and then as technology developed and the kids could go online and listen to the etudes, and then it was like, okay, here we go. Yeah. Because when I first started teaching, none of that existed. And so it took a couple years for me to figure out what are they looking for. So like when I was at Britt, I didn't have an all-stater till my 3rd year. In Hampton, it took a year just because first year they didn't even know what it was.
Right.
And then it became a matter of, okay, this is what the judges are looking for, which is hard with all-state because you don't get feedback. Solo ensemble, large group, jazz band, everything else, you get a piece of paper back that says, okay, this was good, this is what you need to improve. Okay. All-state, you don't. It's either thumbs up or thumbs down. So then it's just a matter of listening and going, okay, what does the student need to do? So it was sitting down, putting it in achievable chunks. And the other thing, too, is we tried to build a community amongst those kids. So, like, we would have, like, in Hampton, we ended up, like, we were the host. We hosted All-State for, like, 20-some years while I was there. But it was bringing those kids together and realizing before they even auditioned how proud we were of all of them. So we would do the stuff on the lockers, just like, good luck at all-state auditions. The kids would write, I think it was just building that community. And the thing is, then the other kids in the band saw that, but we were all in it together, One of the crazy things I would do is I would make the kids do a fake all-state audition in front of 180 kids. If I had a rainy day and the marching band was stuck inside, and I'm going, what do we got to do? So I go, we'll do an all-state audition. And so I'd talk to one of my students. I'd say, would you want to play an all-state audition in front of the entire band? And of course, and some would say, sure, I'd do that.
Yeah.
But it was really cool for them to see what their peers were doing, And then also, it was just like, and I think to celebrate that. The other thing, too, as a teacher, your responsibility, again, is to set that student up for success. So it's setting the lessons up in achievable chunks so that this is something they can achieve. So they don't go, you did those 2 lines really well today. Now, can we add 2 more for your lesson in 3 or 4 days? And then eventually the goal is by the end of this date, here's where I want you to be. The other thing, too, is again, like when I judge, again, it comes back to what I said before, tone and pitch is everything.
Yeah, and I was going to ask, I know that you've judged auditions, and so what are the common things that an All-State judge listens for?
Right, like the first thing you go in, on the solo portion, like the judge doesn't have a copy of the solo, right? Because that's just how All-State works. Now, when I judge trumpet, I'm probably going to know most of the solos, but sometimes if I'm judging maybe oboes or bassoons, I'm not going to know the literature as well. So the thing is, in that first minute, okay, first of all, every judge makes immediate things on tone and pitch right away. Within the first 10 seconds, you know if you need to listen to any more. If the kid has bad tone, and you're going to hear kids with bad tone, fine. They're doing the audition. Mm-hmm. See, I like that kid that comes in there, and you can tell by looking at the solo before it all starts. You're just going, okay, I see the solo they're playing. I can see the level of the kid. And you listen to them play, but they do it. And I just thank God for that kid. They put the work in, and they knew they weren't going to make it, but they did it. I just love those kids. So the first thing you look at, obviously, is just tone and pitch. And that first minute, you need to pick something that the kid feels comfortable doing, because you don't want to start and have the solo be the worst thing that you played. And sometimes you have that, so it's something that kids feels really comfortable doing, but also shows some things that you think the judges want to hear.
Is there a balance of musicality versus technique?
Yeah.
You want a little of both?
I want a little of both.
Okay. Yeah.
And which is fine, and keep it at a minute, because the judge, there's that clock ticking all the time, and I hate to stop a student on their solo, but I've got to hear all those other things. Okay. The other thing, the next in the etudes, like you find in the morning of All-State, what you have to do. So I always made sure my students had practiced the etude starting in different spots. Because you look at it and go, I think it's going to go from here to here, but you never know. The other thing for me is you need to play what's on the page. The biggest thing is kids misses articulations. They need to play what's on there. Because as a judge, you're going to listen to 60 kids play the same thing, and I get to take, listen to 60 trumpets, I get to take 5. All right. So you got to look at what's the accuracy, And so whenever I judge, I track everything. I have just a system where I track, every articulation mistake, every missed note, every missed things like that. So I got to have something to help separate. So make sure you're really, really accurate. However, on the other side, I will always pick the better musician over the more accurate player.
Okay. It seems a lot of those etudes each year have like one or two spots in them. It's like, what did the composer mean in this little measure or this phrase?
Yeah.
Do you allow for interpretation?
Yes.
Okay. As a judge?
Yeah, I do. Because you're sitting there, and because usually all the etudes, I've taught them all. And so I go, okay, here's how I taught it. But I'm going, oh, that's interesting.
Okay.
It's just like judging solo festival. You're going, oh, I've never thought of it. But to me, it's how they sell it. Because
they put thought into it?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Are they playing? Has the tempo changed here because they can't count? Correct. They're not keeping it steady. Or are they being musical? Well, you can tell. You can tell. So to me, it's like, who is the best musician? Because you're going to have note players, you're going to have musicians. And then, obviously, the ones that get it it's the combination of both of them. So I think, it's having good tone, good pitch, good musicality. It's playing what is written on the page, but there's leeway in there because it's music. Yeah. The scales, it's either right or wrong. I know they did a survey of All-State judges. This is probably 10 or 12 years ago. I said, what's the number one thing that keeps kids out of All-State? They said scales. Yep. What's the thing that every kid knows 20 years from now that they have to play? Scales. It's the one thing we know, but it's the hardest. I was a 4-year All-State loser.
Yep.
I never made All-State. And to let you know how sad this is, the music didn't change. When I was in high school, the etudes didn't change. I had the same etude for 4 years.
Gotcha.
Isn't that crazy? I couldn't play scales on my. I could play my piano like backwards, upside. I couldn't play scales on my trumpet to save my soul. But I really think it made me a better teacher because I'm going. This is what I did wrong, you know. So so it's just it's just a matter of, just doing what it. See, I always told my students scales are a tone exercise. I mean, they're a technique exercise, but really they're a tone exercise. Especially like on that chromatic. I can tell in like 4 seconds what your tone is like from your lowest note to your highest note and back down. Is it consistent?
Yeah.
And so it really tells you a lot of a judge. And if it's played musically with good tone, that's going to score really well. So you want? I said no. Scales are tone exercises, because all it is muscle memory. It's muscle memory. Yeah. Eventually, at first, it's not, but eventually, it's a muscle memory. So, and I think it's just going. And I think too, with Allstate, making a mistake isn't going to kill you. I think sometimes they think that I made a mistake, it's over. Yeah, you just win. Okay, fine, you made a mistake. I've only had one student ever, I think, play a perfect audition, ever.
That you judged?
Yeah. I still remember it was a trumpet player. I'm just going, oh my gosh. I mean, I wanted to bow down. It was like I couldn't find anything wrong. In fact, there was nothing wrong. I'm going, okay, that's 120.
Yeah.
120 out of 120. But a mistake isn't going to kill you. No, 10 mistakes, yeah. But I think it's just, because you're going to pick the best musician. But it's attention to detail. It's super, super important. So I think it's going through, and then after it's all done, then it's a matter of is connecting with that student again and just telling them how proud you are of them. I said, again, it comes, because who's in their right mind going to come back to that? If they think, well, I'm a big loser, no, you're not. And that's your job as a teacher, is how to frame it. And I don't care, and that applies really anything, but Allstate especially. Because you can get rating, everything is because everything, but it's how you frame it as a teacher. But especially Allstate is on growth. You sit down. Do you remember how you sounded when you looked at these etudes in August? Remember how you sounded, and you look where you are now.
And did you frame with your students more than this isn't an August to October thing? This is a 4-year journey.
Yeah, you looked at it, and I think it became, a thing of, okay, now, you're a freshman. Okay, now you got, I said, almost your freshman year is your easiest year, because most people don't expect you to make it, because you're a freshman, but sometimes you had freshmen make it, So it's about, okay, now, looking into next year, now this is what we can do differently, And it's just a matter of, it's a 4-year thing. Now, did I have some that decided not to go? Yeah. Which I totally get. Because once they understood the process and the amount of work that it took, but that's okay, and again, that's your job as a teacher. You frame it that way. You look at, like, the Olympics are starting this week. Look at the hundreds of thousands of people that tried out for the Olympics and don't get it, but they still, same thing. It's like, it's for the self-improvement thing. So, and I think the biggest thing with Allstate for the teacher is framing it in the right educational framework. I guess is that it's about self-improvement. It's that talented and gifted program, And because when my students were started, I probably knew 95% of them didn't have a chance. That's okay. That's okay. But look at I said, that it was, pretty intense there. They would, but on the other hand, it set those students up for honor band festivals, solo festivals, and then eventually it just became, it was just like a machine then. All right, I'm going to choose this solo for solo ensemble because then I can do this part for Allstate.
Yep.
It just became, and then they understood it, And so I would sit down like with Brian and say, okay, now out of the 8th graders coming up, who are the ones I should talk to about trying out for Allstate? Even though I knew exactly where they were in the lesson books because we tracked all of that. And he'd say, okay, these are the ones. And so I'd talk to them. But then you'd also open it up. And sometimes you'd have students say, no, I want to try out. I'm going, great. Because it was, but it, it's Allstate can be a negative thing if it's not handled correctly. Because being a host of Allstate, you saw the bad part of it. You could see where, again, that's where it comes down to the teacher. That's your responsibility for preparing the student, but also for being the one who has the structure. Again, it's like you need to set your students up for success and then decide what's your definition of success. If it's making Allstate, okay, you're going to be less successful. If it's like, no, can you imagine how much you've improved? Then everybody succeeds. Everybody succeeds. It's just at a varying degree. Again, it's a spiral.
And not only do they succeed individually, but you've made the band better.
Oh, yes.
And awesome.
Yeah, it's just like when we would be, because at the time of Allstate auditions is when we had them all together for marching band. And then all of a sudden, you'd split them apart, and all the juniors and seniors are gone, and it's just the freshmen and sophomores. And so in marching band, they were following that senior section leader for 9 weeks, and all of a sudden, here's a sophomore or a freshman going, they have to be the section leader. But 9 times out of 10, they were probably had tried out for Allstate. Probably.
Yeah.
And so that was a thing too, as I designed it to go in and say, and that's why I tell them, we're also building strong section players and strong section leaders, and technique, because they had some of that stuff is kind of tricky, So, I think especially in the North Central District, I think Allstate was fairly equitable. A lot of kids from smaller schools can make it.
Yeah.
In some other districts, it's not that way, just because of, of the schools that are in there. But that's the one, because I've only taught in the North Central District, but I've judged all the other districts. I haven't judged North Central, obviously, but I've judged all the others. So, yeah. But I think it comes down to good music is good music. Yeah.
Well, Leon, that's a perfect spot to wrap up. So thanks for coming over. You've meant a lot to me. You're my mentor, teacher. I know you've worked with Kurt's bands. And yeah, I mean, you've made such a difference for so many people. So
well, thank you. It's been great. And so I just thank you for the opportunity.
well, we are all thanks to you. So we got one more thanks to our producer, Matt Stein, behind the camera. And then, I'm Nick. This is Kurt. And this is Planet Band.